Hello again, and welcome to another exciting episode of Beyond the Baseboards. I'm Erik Miller. Thank you for checking it out. This is a free-flowing podcast-style show where we bring in local community real estate experts and talk about what's really happening in their markets, as well as, inspirational and motivational things around the real estate industry. This is a show for anybody interested in learning more about real estate, finance, or those working in the business, which means you should also be interested in talking about real estate and finance. But I'm not here to lecture you. I'm just here to help. Today on the show, we've got the tech real estate agent, Spencer Hsu. He's data-driven, no-holds-barred, super successful real estate agent in the Bay Area. This guy is just really, really smart. And we had so many I've never heard of it that way before moments and interesting things to share that I thought it was best to just go long form on this one. I know this episode's like 40 minutes, but believe me, if you're a fan of real estate, or even the least bit curious about what it's like in that Bay Area housing market, you're gonna love this episode. Anyway, without further awkward, wordy intro, here's the star of our show. Whoa, that rhymed. Spencer Hsu. So I'm here talking with Spencer Hsu. Welcome to Beyond the Baseboards, a Bay Area real estate agent and a tech agent. What we're gonna talk about today is we're gonna talk about the Bay Area. We're gonna talk about tech. We're going to talk about real estate in general. And, it's nice no matter where you're from, you're having frustration. It's nice to see what it's like in other areas. So thank you very much for coming on the show and definitely appreciate you being here.
Erik, it's a pleasure to be on, and hopefully your audience will have some insights that they didn't know before.
I have no doubt about it. And I have done my research this time. I looked at your stuff and I got some snappy questions for you. Please. Some unexpected ones, so I'm a little eager beaver here. Let me get this going here real quick. Turn this down. Hold on a second. Okay, so you're a Bay Area specialist, right? I mean, you hear about, like in Phoenix, you hear about the Bay Area, like I imagine it's like a Western, and in like some town you heard about something going on in some town across the plain or whatever. That's what the Bay Area is like. People talk about it like, buyers come here from the Bay Area and they just gobble up the houses, and the Bay Area is like this like golden universe. So now that we have a Bay Area expert on the show, tell us, what's the Bay Area like?
I've been fortunate to travel all across the country, and so on one end, I'm not in a bubble. I travel all across the country and travel across the world, so I have a global perspective. The houses here aren't necessarily anything special. The reality is places in Phoenix, Las Vegas, Texas, all these other places actually probably have much nicer houses than we have here. The key, though, is not about the actual house. So when you always see comparisons of what does $1 million buy you here and $1 million buy you there, it's all garbage, quite frankly. It's not about the house itself. It's about the land. And it's a combination of the land and what is the income that is being produced for the people that live in the Bay Area, hence why the houses are so much. But when you actually look at houses, you're going to be very generally unimpressed. And it's going to be almost shocking, especially for those from outside areas. But then when you understand the long-term appreciation and why things are what they are and why things are a certain price, then it gives you a different understanding that you look at it much more as a true investment than other areas. And so I think that's what people kind of fail to understand. Now, make no mistake, I mean, it's beautiful to see a lot of the corporate campuses. Like there's a reason why companies are still hiring like crazy in the Bay Area, why people make on average a significant higher amount than everywhere in the entire country. So there are spots where you're like, oh, wow, it's cool. This is where Facebook is headquarters at. They have tens of thousands of employees here. You may not know that because you just use the platform, occasionally. And then you look at, oh, wow, Google is here, massive campus, 100,000 employees, right? Oh, Apple, spaceship, hundreds of thousands of employees, right? San Francisco, tons of startups, tons of companies. So that's always kind of cool for those that are from the outside. They get to see like, these are the companies that are some of the largest companies in the world They have massive corporate campuses here, massive amount of employees. And of course, if you look at their stock, doing phenomenal. And it then translates as to how much people earn, and then translates to why homes are a certain price. So I think that's the key thing. The houses, though, aren't like stellar, relative speaking. It is all about the land, because it is very difficult to build anything new now. And if you were to be building, you're going to be building far away. And so because the traffic patterns are all the same, just like in many areas, there are hubs of jobs. So it all flows one direction and flows out the other direction. You're not going to see too many like really unique or nice looking houses per se. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the houses, but you're going to see a lot of like really creative ones in other areas, but not so much of the Bay Area.
You bring up a really good point that I don't think is talked about enough. Big is really big. Big is bigger than you think. And when you're talking about the employers in the area, you're talking about the biggest employers in the world. In Arizona, Amazon is building a ton of warehouses here. And if you've ever seen an Amazon warehouse, it's the most gigantic thing you've ever seen in your life. It's just like, it goes on for like a mile. It's like a miles wide building. It's unbelievable. And that's only one of like, how many do they have, right? And so you get an idea of the scope of what big really is. And so you're talking about the biggest employers in the world living there. It makes sense that they're going to have, they're going to create a bit of a ripple effect from being in the market.
I think what people need to understand, I mean, no offense to the individuals that work at these warehouses, it's great opportunity and great for a lot of individuals to have jobs. But I mean, what is the income of those individuals? And then what is the income of engineers? The starting salary for most engineers in a lot of these big tech companies, now it is hard to get in, so I'm not saying it's easy, I'm not downplaying it. But the starting engineer is a base salary is $150,000 a year, straight out of school. And some people can get internships at that amount. So when people understand and grasp like how much people are making, and this is their first year, and we all know in general markets, most people can afford easily 5 times their income. You can see already, first year as a solo person, you can already qualify for at least a $750,000, $800,000 home. And I think once people get the understanding of that, and people will hate on it, but if people grasp that, then they get to get a sense of like, it is expensive here, make no mistake. It is not it's not an equally distributed right path. Not everybody's an engineer. But the reality is there's a lot of engineers and they're growing like crazy and they get paid very well. And, for those individuals, especially your dual income, this is not that expensive relative to them. And it's hard for people to grasp that, but it is what it is. And you're starting to see that though in a lot of the other markets, right? Phoenix is an example, Texas is an example. If you have them, even if they cut 20% of their income and because of taxes or moving to another cost of living or whatever it may be, that's a tremendous amount of income that is now being transplanted to another area. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about, I'm sure later, about like the growth of these other areas, whether it's for themselves or for investing, but it's happening, and you get a little taste of what's been going on in the Bay Area in your local markets.
What's the I say starter home, but like, what's the sort of bottom threshold for a house in the Bay Area right now?
I think the key for people to understand is the starter home may not be a traditional home like many places. And so when you come here, if you think, look, my starter home is a single family home, which is the case for most places across the country, they will be shocked, and they should be shocked because of what it is. So I would say the starter single family home would probably be about $1.5 million.
Okay.
Medium price. Starter can obviously be less. Maybe it's a little bit above $1 million. But that's not the starter home that most people start off with, is the reality, right? People start off with condos and townhomes, and those are under $1 million. You can get 2-bed condos for under $500,000. That's where people may start. And then if they have a growing family or they want to trade up, then they may go for those larger properties. That's the way to think about it here.
How long have you been a real estate agent?
It's been 2.5 years.
Okay. And what got you into real estate?
My previous life, I was in software sales. So I was in tech. I got to work with a lot of the corporate real estate teams of these companies. So I got to understand how these companies think, why they grew their corporate campuses a certain way, and how they're growing their corporate campus across the country and the world. So I knew why they were doing things what they were doing. And I knew that was a major competitive advantage because at the end of the day, a lot of it goes to location of jobs, especially high paying jobs. And so I started getting that little edge and little niche. And then I also kind of got tired of that corporate life. I got paid very well, but I felt like I was getting capped. And there was a lot of people that I can help, especially with my data-driven approach. So then I started getting to the business. So while the journey has not been long, I think for the most part, anyone that knows a little bit about my numbers knows that people in the last decade may not even live up to it. So to give you an idea, last year was my second year, right? And in the midst of COVID, in the midst of, a very difficult time for newer people, I helped about 35 families buy and sell a house in the Bay Area for over 43 million.
Wow.
This year to date, we're kind of recording kind of halfway through the year. I've already helped 34 families for maybe over 40 something million plus year to date. And we'll help about 70 families this year. And we're just accelerating. And
Well,
it's been wild.
I was going to say, that's a big testament to you. I'm a big believer that success is not an accident, right? You are successful in one field, you moved into a new field, you're successful in that field too. It's ridiculously competitive. Congratulations on your success. I know you're not bragging. You're being very factual about it. For those that might think he's bragging, he's not. He's just saying, listen, I've had to work really hard. If you don't understand how ridiculous that market is, I imagine it's stupidly competitive. And so you started from zero with your contacts and an idea, and you've grown it to this. How did you do it? What did you do to sort of, for lack of a better term, claw your way out and up a little bit and get some traction? What was some of the stuff that you did to separate yourself, other than, obviously you're tech minded, you're in a tech hub? Was that it, or what was it?
No, there's a lot of things, and you're correct. I mean, when you think about the commissions here, people will all want to be a realtor, even if it was part-time, to give it a try. And it makes sense for them to attempt that. Now, it's a very different story when you're trying to grow this as a business, right? I mean, just do the basic math. If the average I just told you is $1.5 million for a home, one commission is, what is that, $30,000, $40,000? Like, who wouldn't want to give this a try, right? And so you have a ton of competition for that reason. But at the same time, just like anything else, the top 10% of individuals do over 90% of the business. And it will keep being that way because it's a momentum business, number one, and it's an experience business, right? Like most people, would you rather trust somebody that does one thing once every couple of months, or would you trust someone that does something that happens 6-7 times a month, like getting in contract? So people kind of gravitate towards that, fortunately, but you do have to get your message out there. And there's a lot of noise, right? Lots of noise. In terms of my growth, I think there's several things that have contributed to the success. A lot of it is just discipline. It's always easy when you hear a Grant Cardone speech or, Gary Vee speech, and you get hyped up, for a day, for a week, for a month. The question for everybody is, can you have that same drive and that energy every day? I basically work 7 days a week. But the beauty of my work is I don't think of it as work. I mean, because it's incredible, right? In our life, in our career, we have the opportunity to help almost everybody. It may not be now either, but it may be sometime down the road. So it's really, really cool feeling like whoever you meet may change your life. And that's almost like a jackpot, right? That's almost like a slot machine. So that's kind of how I view just meeting new people. Now, I'm not looking at from them as a dollar sign, but it's like, it's incredible that you have that opportunity
To help them, right? Because the people that you helped get a house 2 years ago, how much equity have they earned in the 2 years since you helped them the first time?
It's incredible, right? I mean, to give you an idea, the Bay Area has had a laggard actually because of last year. A lot of people have moved out initially thinking they may not have to come back. And this year, people have all returned already, and they will continue to come back as companies return back to the offices in September and October. So the crazy part is that it's all a laggard. But if you actually look at just the last 6 months, most single family, as an example, has increased 25 to 30% in that 6 months.
Oh man. Oh my God. And you multiply that by $1.5 million, right? You're just like,
Right?
if that's not changing people's lives, even if you're an engineer, you're talking about putting away 2 years worth of income after taxes by that. And I totally agree with you. I don't think it gets talked about enough. It's the opportunity to change people's lives in that way. I find it humbling. I'm a lender, right? I find it very humbling to help people get into a place that maybe they could barely get into. And then 2 years later, now they've got $100,000 in equity down here, but up there, substantially more.
It's substantially more. And you can't imagine how many people through the last year, even the ones that had to compete this year, right? I mean, this year I've already helped a lot of people, and it is competitive. But like, I just get these messages and calls, and they're like, thank God you convinced me to edge out. Because at that time, it was like, should I pay extra $5,000, $10,000 to get this? Yeah. I'm like, look at where the market is, because I'm very data driven. Look at where the market is. This is a very fair shot. I mean, it's your choice if you want to keep searching and keep competing for $10,000. And especially, it's all percentage based, right? $10,000 out of over $1 million is basically 1%, less than 1%. So like, all right, let's just do it. And we got it. And then you look back just 1 year later, and they're like, holy cow, our home went up 20 something percent, 30%. Yeah. And they're like, we would not be in the same neighborhood if it wasn't for that purchase back last year when things were not as intense.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It's incredible, right? It's incredible when we talk, we joke now, because it's like everybody's laughing out the door right now for those that have bought a home just in the last couple of years that I've been a realtor. So it's incredible to see. And it's, it's not just me, right? It's kudos to them. I mean, it's kudos to them for trusting me, trusting the data, and having the confidence to do it. And they're all very happy moving forward.
I feel like it's a real privilege to help people. I mean, it's always an honor, even if they're like, struggling, or if they've got whatever they want. Like, it's always, there's a million people, right? You're not one in a million, you're one of a million. And for them to pick you and to trust you, and then for you to kill it for them, I mean, it's hard not to like that if you know what's going on, right? If you're looking at this as a job, I feel bad for you, because you're really missing out on the best benefit of everything that you're doing, which is the impact that you get to have on people.
It's the impact in the journey, right? And that's a beautiful part about this. Every journey is different. Like, there's some that they just call me today. We go look at a house on the weekend. We get in contract. It's a super smooth closing. 1 month later, they're in the house. And then all their friends are like, how in the world did you get in a house this quickly in this market? And then you have others that, that take months. And it's maybe they're pickier, maybe they're just less aggressive, whether they just don't know themselves as to what they want to do, right? So, I remember every one of my purchases, every one of my home sales. I remember the whole journey of all of them, and that's a part of it. It's everyone is a different experience, and so that's what's also cool about this.
You shared something that's very interesting. I haven't heard it yet, and so there was a migration out of the Bay Area. And what you're saying is that you're starting to see people come back. Can you expand on that?
So if you look at the data, because the data is very, very clear, right? So most of the prime areas, so there's a few prime locations. If you look at the Bay Area, the way to think about it is like the Bay is kind of in the middle, and then you have the most expensive county, which is called San Mateo County. The reason why it's the most expensive is because it's the most landlocked, and also it's because it's the best location from a jobs perspective, because you have San Francisco above, you have big tech companies on the south, and then you have tons of biotech in the middle. And so this is the most prime. And then you look at like San Mateo County, you look at Santa Clara County, which is like a little bit south of where big tech is, San Jose area. if you look at the data, those areas last year have actually, many of them actually may have declined, if not been relatively flat, while we all know the rest of the country blew up, right? Done incredible. Austin, all these markets went crazy.
Yeah.
And because that time, there was a lot of flexibility. There was work from home indefinitely, right? There's no certainty as to where it is. So a lot of people moved out, whether renters moved out, whether just homeowners may have moved out. Now where they moved is a different question, right? Most just moved one county over. So most moved to like across to the other side of the bridge, which is the East Bay, Alameda County. They may move a little bit further out.
Ventura, I've heard a lot of movement to Ventura County.
Yeah, just neighboring counties. It could be Sacramento, right? I mean, they could still be there, or they may move out further out, like Phoenix or Texas or Florida.
Utah.
Yeah, these different markets. So they did that over the last year. However, what had happened this year to change everything? What has happened this year is vaccines have, if you look back, which is kind of amazing, vaccines have been rolled out very aggressively in the early parts of the year, right? And people getting vaccinated, things were starting to open up again. And so at that point, I would say kind of maybe on February or so, there was a clear light at the end of the tunnel that things will be wide open again, which we are now wide open, that offices may want to start having people mandated to return back to the office. Now, there are some companies that are remote indefinitely, and those are the ones that will catch all the headline articles, right? All the articles that you hear, oh, Twitter is working from home remotely, Salesforce working from home remotely, all this stuff. But the reality is a majority of companies are actually 3 days a week in the office. Now, if you think about this, 3 days in the office, that's going to be mandated in September and October. People are making their moves in advance. So what has happened throughout the year, those prime areas, San Mateo County, Santa Clara County, had a flock of people returning in advance to that eventual move. And it's continued to be that way. Prices have continued to increase even more drastically as that deadline nears. So that is what's happening in a lot of places. Now, does that mean everybody's returning back? No. Of course, like I said, there's some people that either have a job that doesn't need them back, number one, or number two, they may just switch to another job altogether and they don't want to work for those types of companies. But the majority of people, because it is a very high paying job, it is the opportunity to see peers and have the growth into maybe other companies, everybody has flocked back. And so rental market has picked up, home prices have clearly picked up. That's actually what has happened. And so it's very clear that things have just started. I mean, they've been hot, but it doesn't seem like it's slowing down still, because the Bay Area real estate market, as much as it has grown and as much as the prices have been, is a laggard for the entire country, because the migration has been initially Bay Area out, Bay Area, Seattle, New York out, and now people are flocking back in. So it seems like it still has some room.
Well, I think we're breaking news here, because that is not what you're hearing in Arizona. That's not what they're talking about in Utah, and they're certainly not sharing that in Austin, Texas, not in Nevada. It's all about flight from the Bay Area, right? Flight from the Oregon, Washington, that kind of stuff. And they're not talking about migration back, but what you're saying makes absolute sense, because in our area, you're starting to see inventory increase for certain cities. And that seems to coincide with what you're talking about.
It's very easy to always poo-poo California. How many times does that happen, like in anyone's career? But let's just take it objectively. You're always going to catch that headline because it's a very attractive headline, right? It's super sexy. It's super great. Oh, California sucks. Everybody's leaving California. We're going to raise everybody.
I've never said that.
Maybe not you, but a lot of people have, the people that quote unquote leave, right? So you will always hear that. This is not going to be the last time, right? But you see it for yourself. And if you want to talk about hot, this does not explain why these prices have increased what they have.
Right.
If it wasn't for local people buying, there are very few foreign people. This is not outside money. These are just local people buying, right? So it's very clear as long as they want to be objective and understand, and make no mistake, the areas that you're at, I mean, it's a challenge right now, quite frankly, for a lot of those cities, right? Like now you're all of a sudden competing with Bay Area, Seattle money.
Yeah.
Man, you're in trouble locally. So it's tough. It's very tough for those in your markets because that kind of income comes into your market, you will get destroyed. I mean, for a lot of people, right? I mean,
It's happening. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. And
'cause-
our market's cooled down a little bit, but it's like cooling down from 1,000 degrees to 600 degrees. It's
Right.
still
yeah.
ridiculous.
So I feel I have a lot of empathy, quite frankly, for the local people. I mean, you guys must hate Californians for this reason too, right? Because it's tough.
that and
You
the
hate it
Lakers.
and love it, right? You hate it and love it, right? You're like, oh, my house price has gone up. And they're like, oh, these guys again from California come in with all their money, all their tech money.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough. Now, I will say that it may not slow down as well in your markets because if you look at the money that people have had, they have options, right? Like look at those stock companies, right? Look at the performances, look at the new IPOs, look at all this money being minted. Look at all these fresh millionaires being minted. They have options. Do they keep it in the stock market? Do they buy Bay Area real estate? Or do they buy real estate in your markets as rentals? So it's happening because they want to diversify. They may also assume, or they may think Bay Area may be too expensive, even though they can easily afford it. They're like, hey, look, if Phoenix is a fifth the price, they may have that justification, whether it's right or wrong. So that is an impact for sure happening. So I'm not saying it's gonna stop. I think there's still some opportunities for those that are local, but that still is a catalyst. But I think the catalyst as a primary may be changed a little bit.
And where do you think for the Bay Area, like if you can project 3 years, what do you think is going to happen over the next 3 years?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, everybody always assumes that the Bay Area will have a correction, but the thing is, unless a lot of these big tech companies truly leave, which they're not. I mean, they actually, for those that don't know, during the last year, they actually doubled down on the corporate real estate space. They have more corporate real estate space than ever before. So until there's a big catalyst, because it's all about where the money is. If the money really leaves the Bay Area and just really spreads out, I actually don't think that's a good thing, not just for the Bay Area, for the country, because if they can really spread out to anywhere, what stops them from spreading out just to cheap places across the outside the country? So I think there's some bigger things that people are need to be very cautious about if they're able to truly be that efficient. But I don't think that's the case. I mean, I think what it is, I think it's going to be a continued increase. I mean, it's hard to not see that. Like the amazing thing is on the outside, when people look in, they're like, oh, wow, the median price is X dollar amount. It's so inflated. This is a massive bubble. All hell will break loose. They'll crash. But it's all relative. It's all relative to income, right? That's what it boils down to. If I told you that a majority of people are from a leverage perspective, whether they're putting 20% to 40% down, and from a debt to income perspective, especially you as a lending perspective, is about 20%. You tell me, is that really leverage here in the Bay Area? And that's what people are not factoring, right? Because they don't want to grasp, and people don't showboat that often in the Bay Area either, right? This is not like LA where people drive, Lamborghinis and show off as much. They just are very quiet. They have a lot of money in stock. They have a lot of money in their house, and they just live their regular life eating regular food. And so, there's nothing, you wouldn't know. That's the incredible part here. Like, we don't show things off. Like, I don't drive like, Ferrari just because I make a lot of money. People just live a regular life. And so it's hard to see how much people really make. But if you see the stock prices and you understand that most employees have stock and RSUs, just do some basic math. You will see how much people actually earn, and you can see how much their income really is. And you can start to digest why homes are what they are. But even then, they don't have that much leverage, relative speaking. So, I mean, that's the thing. It seems like it still be some time. Now, I think prime areas will continue to be very valuable again, because now people will factor in traffic, which they have not factored in for the last year and a half. People have forgotten all about traffic, which I think is a big mistake. So I think the prime areas will continue to do well. But the beauty is, I think some places in the surrounding areas will continue to do well, because if they really have flexibility, they may be willing to tolerate that 2-hour one-way drive, 3 days a week than 5 days a week as it was in the past.
Mhm.
That's what it seems like. That's what it seems like.
So you follow the rental markets too. What are the rental rates out there for, let's say, 2-bedroom normal abode? What do they run right now?
I mean, if you're looking at like a 2-bedroom condo or a 2-bedroom apartment, obviously it depends on which city. You're probably still looking at maybe in the high twos, if not the low 3,000 a month.
Okay. All right. So actually, in Phoenix, we're 2-bedroom, we're at 2,100 right now for nicer area, not crazy, but not ghetto. You know what I mean? Am I allowed to say that word? I don't know.
I won't comment on what you said.
Am I allowed to? I'm about to edit out my own video. Like,
no. No, but I would say the nicer areas are still like 4,000 or 5,000 plus.
Okay.
So I mean, it's obviously going to be more. It'll obviously be more, but I mean, like I said, that's the thing. Like, people don't grasp. They assume it's all that price.
Right.
Every city will have its own, and one neighboring city will be like almost $1,000 a month less. So
Yeah.
it just depends on where you want to be, and you have many options.
So you have this great YouTube channel. I'll include a link below.
Cool.
How long have you been on YouTube, and how has your YouTube sort of stuff changed over time?
It's changed a lot. So I started 1 year, 4 months ago when COVID first started, right?
Okay.
And I did that because, one, everybody remembers, if you do remember, like the first month kind of after, like it was all lockdown, right? You can't even leave our house, especially, remember, in the Bay Area is as locked down as it was in the entire country.
Okay.
So we basically barely could leave our house. It was very bad and very scary, of course, at that time. So I was like, oh, you know what else I'm going to do? I can't even go on vacation. I don't want to binge watch a bunch of Netflix. I think at the time too, what's funny, it was like, because all the studios shut down too, there's like nothing to watch either. Right. So there's literally nothing to do from a leisure perspective, right?
Except eat.
No, even eating, remember, right? Even eating, like a lot of takeout, like it was hard to even get takeout.
That's true.
Like, so what are you even going to binge eat, right? So, during that time, I was like, okay, you know what? I've always thought video and YouTube was an angle that I wanted to do. And the other thing is, I was reading a lot of these, just like the headline articles that a lot of the country knows, like people leaving California, or prices are tanking, or all hell's going to break loose, Bay Area, or real estate's going to crash. And I'm like, I see these numbers every day. Like, this is a lot of garbage that's being spent out. Let me share this knowledge and the data publicly, so people that want to listen and understand the truth has a source for that. Mm-hmm. And so I started off initially with my little phone, had a crazy backdrop, just my curtains, and got it going. And then I was like, all right, there's, even though there wasn't like a crazy amount of viewers, there's a few viewers. I was like, whether tens or hundreds of viewers. I'm like, who's even watching my stuff?
I think that too all the time. Like, who's watching this?
Like, who's watching this? But it's like, hey, look, I'm sure there's some people getting value of it. So let's just keep doing it. Let's make it better and better. And so just kind of over the weeks, over the months, I've started kind of tuning it a little bit better, making the quality, the production levels better. Mm-hmm. And it's been really, really good for my business. I mean, I've had at least 10 clients that helped buy and sell a house through YouTube already since that time. And I have a lot more, in the works. But it's been not just on YouTube, but the video itself has been a really good opportunity for me to also share it with my own social media network and my newsletter. And so everybody had got to see me as a different type of agent that was just much more creating value and helping people and just trying to cut out all the BS that is out there. And so that was a big opportunity for me. And we have a lot of cool stuff, in the works. So we have, different spins of what we'll do for our content. We have 2 videos a week. So we're going to keep making that better and better. But it's been great. And yeah, it's always cool. Like even when I host open houses now, or I'm out and about, the people just come up to me and be like, hey, look, yeah, I love your stuff on YouTube. It's
Cool.
super insightful. Nobody does that the way that you do. I'm like, why aren't you using me? Right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, you kind of speak engineer, right? You come from a software background. You have high engineers, a lot of engineering types there in your community, and you really speak.
yeah.
You know, you're not the type to go hug a tree on your video. You're very much like analytic, data driven, and I would say cut and dry because but it really is like focus and poignant and just awesome. Also, go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was about to make a comment. Yeah, no, I mean, it's, my niche is those that are more analytical, data driven, and quite frankly, anybody that really truly wants to care about their investments. And so I share all these numbers. I'm very transparent, very direct. This is what it is. This is not the market for everyone, but for those that want to participate, I will help you get a competitive edge. And that's kind of my pitch and my angle. And so fortunately, a lot of people, appreciate that.
I would say too, and I've watched a lot of YouTubers and finance and all that. I would say you're easily the best dressed in all of YouTube. You have the sharpest suits. You look great. Nobody wants to dress like an adult anymore, and you're just killing it.
No, yeah, I apologize for not matching your attire today.
No. I got dressed up because I was like, this guy, he's gonna show up in his burgundy blazer. He's gonna make me look like a dumb monkey.
No, it's I have a lot of custom suits. I love wearing the custom suits. My wife certainly approves of the custom suits. No, it's I enjoy wearing suits. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think your stuff is very, very good, and it's fun and it's interesting, and you definitely learn a lot, and you're able to put people into the market or into a specific property, and they can kind of feel what that property is like and then decide for themselves. And the messages are very clear. It's a really great channel. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, definitely check the link below. You're going to really like it, and subscribe. And it's no nonsense. Even if you're not moving the Bay Area, I still think you provide a lot of insight for people. And I think it's a super value add.
I appreciate it.
So, okay. So then my last little segment is worst case, best case. Okay. So in your experience in real estate, what, if you're willing to share, what's your biggest horror story? Like what's if you have a story that's like, I can't believe this actually happened, nightmare scenario.
Oh yeah. It's always fun. Like, fortunately it's fun now because it's all closed, and we, at the end of the day, that's the journey part of it. Right. So it's always good for laughs, good for drinks afterwards. And it's on the lending side of a particular one. And I'll share this because it's crazy. I've never heard of it before, and hopefully it doesn't happen again. So there's this one transaction that I had. It was bizarre, just crazy. So we got in contract. It was a pretty clean home. There's nothing with the home itself. It was just a journey of working with this lender. And usually, as most lenders, when you get in contract, the first thing you do is order an appraiser, because those take the longest time right now. So you get that done in advance, and then they may show up a few weeks later. And I would assume, because I've done so many of these, that it's very basic that that's what you do as a lender. And so what was crazy was this particular lender we got in contract with. And then 3 weeks, because usually I check in every week and I say, hey, look, are we all good? We're all on schedule of closing. Right. Every week I check in. And it's like, yeah, we're all good. We're all good. We're all good. I'm like, okay, we're good. And then a week before we're going to close, I'm like, wait a second. The appraiser never even went out. Right? So we never even got our appraisal report. It's like, what's going on? So I reached out, like, what's going on? We don't even have the appraiser. I don't even heard of the appraiser. Did they even go out? And they started looking into it then. It's like, oh my God, the appraiser was never even ordered. what? What is
Yeah.
going on? I'm like, what is this? Am I getting pranked? What is going
You're being
on?
punked.
Yeah, this is getting punked. Like, what is this? And what's crazy because, most of us are non-contingent. So everything's on the line, right? 3% of our deposit in the Bay Area is always on the line if you're not able to fulfill the contract. And I'm just like, how does this even happen? Okay, let's fix it, right? I mean, it is what it is. We clearly don't have an appraiser. It is what it is. So at that point, he ordered an appraiser. He wanted to order a rush appraiser.
Yeah,
and
of course.
He wanted to charge us for his mistake of ordering a rush appraiser and not just eat it himself. It's like, yeah, this is not my fault. I don't like,
all right. Yes.
yeah. No, it's hilarious now, right? It's
well,
very bad when
it's common is what it is. It's funny. It's common.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? So okay, we rushed it, and then
How much was it?
To rush it was probably $750 to rush it. Yeah,
Plus the cost of the appraisal.
What was that?
Plus the appraisal cost.
Right, plus the appraisal cost. Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Okay.
maybe $1,500, whatever it is. So okay, so we rushed it now. All right. So the appraisal went out. It went fine, of course. It just because it was never ordered, and then we're about to start in the processing, loan docs processing and close, and then he was like, we're only like 5 days from closing, even though it was already really delayed because we already moved everything back by another 2-3 weeks. Fortunately, I negotiated and we worked things out with the other side. We didn't get charged anything.
You saved the day.
Yeah, we saved the day.
Literally saved the day because they could have just
take the money and run.
Yep.
Yeah. So 5 days before we're supposed to close, he was like, he sends my clients the closing disclosures, right? The closing docs. And the numbers were completely different than what was quoted before.
Right.
And then he didn't even try to explain it. He just hoped that person would just sign it.
Okay.
And then so my client was like, gave me a call. Was like, what happened here? Why is this so much higher? It's like a big difference in rates. And what happened was combination. They didn't even fill out the application right. This was a duplex. They count as like a single family.
Wow.
And there's like these different other criterias. Like, I don't know how you messed that up. It was always a duplex. Like nothing changed here. It was clerical errors.
Yeah.
And so like that number along with he's going to get credit back and all this stuff was completely different. Mm-hmm. And he was pissed, right? He was pissed. Obviously we had to pay the appraisal fee. We had to pay, we had this ridiculous amount of quote because otherwise.
And he hit you in that window where like, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do about it?
What are you going to do? Yeah. But he was so upset. The buyer was so upset. He's like, I don't even want to finish with this guy. So what we did then was we got another lender at that late stage to rush as much as possible. So we were delayed another 2 weeks. But we fortunately closed and we went well with that other lender. That was my contact.
Wow.
So it was a crazy journey, right? Yeah. Crazy journey. I've never experienced it before. I also never experienced because he wasn't sorry for this stuff, right? He wasn't like apologetic, trying to make it right. I'll cover it. I'll take care of it. Like it was more of, this is your problem. I did everything that I could. I'm like, that's why the entire time. And I talk to my clients still today. Like it's a great story now, but the entire time he's like, am I really getting
heart attack, right? Heart attack.
Yeah. Like what is happening?
Yeah. Cause you had to extend that thing twice.
Yeah. And then he was going to charge us for the, rate lock extensions. He was going to charge us for that, assuming it was our fault. It's like, what is going on?
You know what that is? That's, here's how most lenders do it. Oh, thank you for the contract. Oh, thank you. Ring, ring. Oh, got your contract all over it. Then it's like, oh yeah, great. And then you're like, okay, great. Everybody's good. Yeah. Oh yeah, we're good. Right. Click. And it's like this. Sleepy time for 2-3 weeks. And you actually woke them up. Ring. Hello. Appraisal. Let me look into that. Like, oh no, right? Everything is your fault, bro. Everything's your fault.
Crazy.
But that's a big thing, right? A lot of sleepy time.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
And you can't sleep. You can't sleep in this market. You just can't do it. And you definitely don't want to sleep when you're dealing with, like there's so much at risk and they can easily, there's so much leverage on the seller side. You've got to just be like more, that's like disrespectful in my
This
opinion.
is disrespectful. This is bizarre, right?
Yeah.
So that's the worst one that I've dealt with. And this was not long ago, a couple months ago. But it was crazy. It's like, what is happening?
It's hard because you're so on top of your stuff.
Right.
You're an absolute professional. And then when you're dealing with these people, you're just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm like, how have you even been in business? Like, this is like crazy.
yeah. On my end, it's like you see a contract and it's like, hey, I noticed that you're charging the buyer an additional 1% as the buyer's agent. So like, that seems weird. Oh, am I? Like, yeah, you accidentally typed in extra for you.
Wow.
That the buyer's gonna have to come in with, this is a down payment assistance loan, right? Like they don't have that. Like, oh, I don't know how that got in there. Like, you wrote the contract. It doesn't matter. Anyway, it's probably just an error. Like on my end, I'm so much lower on the food chain. I got to pretend like you didn't try to just totally shaft this guy. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, stuff gets typed in complete sentences accidentally all the time. Don't you even worry about it, sir.
Yeah, 1%, 2%, 3%. Yeah, it's just a percent.
Yeah, probably because the seller is giving you 2% buy side instead of a 3%. So that's probably why he charged the buyer another 1.5%. That totally makes sense to me because you got to make a living, I guess. What's your best story that you've had? Like the one, if there's one that where you just like just killed it, just everything went great, you just destroyed it. What's your best real estate story?
I mean, I would say the best real estate story is kind of a funny journey is, and it actually goes with YouTube. So, I do a mailing campaign. I wouldn't say it's like wildly effective by any means, but I got one out of it, and
okay.
I got one deal out of it because on the mailer, and this was last year too, on the mailer it had my YouTube channel information for those that want to learn about the market and things like that. So he saw that, and then he went to my YouTube channel and then watched he told me probably at least a few videos before eventually reaching out. And once he reached out, it was a pleasant surprise because that ended up to be my largest purchase so far. I think it's the largest purchase so far. It is the largest purchase so far. And we eventually closed, and it didn't take very long. He was working with another agent at that time, but they were not very happy because that person didn't have the same work ethic or the data-driven approach that I had. So they said, look, let's make a switch. And we ended up buying a $3.5 million home in Palo Alto. So it's like incredible. I mean, incredible. I mean, the process went pretty smooth as well. We searched maybe for about a month, beat out maybe 4 or 5 offers on that home, made an early offer. And that's another story. Like last year when we bought it and he looks at the price this year, like he would have to pay another like $500,000 more right now to even have a chance to get it. So it was cool on a lot of ends, right? It was cool on the journey. It was cool on timing because that probably was the best time too. Combination of price time, but also remember interest rate time too back then.
Right.
So they locked it for a crazy low one. I mean, you may know of like Wells Fargo and these other players. They have like these ways to buy down
They
rates,
do when you have
down
your
payment,
investments
reserves, stuff
there.
like that.
Yeah.
So he had like some crazy low. I think he was like 1 or 2.2% for a 30-year fix jumbo, like a $2 million loan or $3 million loan, something like ridiculous. So incredible, right? Like incredible offer. So we still talk about today about the whole journey, but also like the rates that he had and timing wise, like it couldn't have been any better.
That's pretty shocking, right? When you, is that the first time where you feel like your YouTube channel had an impact, a positive impact on an outcome? Was it?
No, I don't think it was the first time. It was the biggest one.
Okay.
Right? It was the biggest one, but I may have had other people beforehand.
But that's the one that seems like it connected, and you had to feel like, I'm so glad I've made hundreds of videos for this exact moment, right? It had to feel great.
Yeah. No, it feels great. And even today, like, even though the subscriber counts have increased and viewer counts have increased, I don't really care as much of that. I mean, I think I care on one end, like the content is relevant, but at the same time, I care more of like, if there's one or two people that can find value of this and it helps them on the decision or helps them be able to have the confidence to reach out to me, and then we start the journey, then it's all worth it. I mean, the quality and the type of video we're doing is going to be continue to be more and more expensive and better. But it's just one at a time. And you never know what video sticks, and you never know when timing is right. But I'll be here chugging along every day, and I'll be able to help people whenever that time is right.
Well, Spencer Hsu, thank you so much for coming on the Beyond the Baseboards podcast. You were absolutely awesome. Your approach to real estate, your openness with the market, your experience and expertise, I think it's going to be a big hit for everybody. And thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate your time. Nice to meet you. And I'm sure I will talk to you soon.
Likewise. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.